Just excited to see this group. I mean, this is awesome that we have this kind of a get together to celebrate a really important month to me personally and to Autumn as well. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us here. I'm just going to say a couple of remarks and then pass it over for what I think is going to be a really interesting, thoughtful and celebratory conversation. There are members in my members of the LGBTQ community and my best of friends in my family, and they make me proud all the time, just with their perseverance, the way they carry themselves and the things that they accomplish. But it's important that we take every June and Pride Month to celebrate those wins and to uphold the dignity and respect that community must have, especially in a week like this and on a day like this today. So please be thoughtful, listen to everyone here and share. This is an important water cooler to us and to Autumn. Couple of housekeeping things. That will be recorded. We will post this on our website. Please mute yourself when not talking. And with that, I'm going to pass it, I think, to Karen, who's going to kick us off here and lead us on the way. Thanks, Karen.
Great. Thank you so much, Ian. I'm Karen Maples. I'm the chair of the EDI committee. And I'm not going to talk very much because I really want us to get into the heart of the water cooler, but just a couple things. So the commitment, Autumn's commitment to EDI is very evident, and I encourage you, if you haven't already, to check out the core values and Autumn's EDI statement on the website. And the EDI committee's mission is to translate Autumn's commitment to EDI into programs and initiatives. And there are a few things that I'll just mention quickly. We are in the process of developing a EDI toolkit for members that will encourage discussion and conversation, and hopefully also food for thought about the kinds of things we can do to be more proactive or intentional in supporting EDI. We also did an EDI survey last year, and we're going to do a second version of that survey later this year. I encourage everyone to be on the lookout for that, because the more people who participate in responding to the survey, the better informed we'll be about what those results tell us about Autumn and what more we can do to show our support for EDI. And then the last couple things I want to mention, Autumn has also asked the EDI committee to look at Autumn programs and make sure that we're making recommendations for how our programming can be inclusive of EDI topics. And so if there are suggestions that you have for us about the kinds of things you would like to see, please feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on the EDI committee and let us know what your thoughts are. And then the other thing that Autumn has asked of the EDI committee is to help Autumn achieve a more diverse board and more diverse leadership. And I think if you look at where we are today versus 5-10 years ago, I think that you will definitely see diversity in Autumn increasing. And I think you'll also see that we're promoting and supporting a welcoming environment to make sure that everyone feels a sense of belonging. And so once again, if you have any thoughts about this, I would love to hear from you. And then the final thing that I'll say is, and I don't know if you saw this in the in the invite that went out, but this is the first annual Pride celebration for Autumn. We plan to do this every year, but it's not for us to celebrate just in the month of June or just to have this one event one day in June. We want to be demonstrating our support to the Pride and LGBTQIA plus community all year long. And once again, if there are specific things that you would like to see us do to show our support, please reach out to us and let us know. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Eileen Dingus, who is going to get us started with facilitating some conversation. Eileen?
Thank you, Karen. My name is Eileen Dingus. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with Tech Launch Arizona at the University of Arizona. I am co-chair of the DEI SIG, which is the special interest group, and I'll share some information about that later with my co-chair, Misty Farrell, who is here. So we're going to kick off with a little bit of trivia. This is an important month. It's a fun month, but it's more than just about putting rainbows on everything at Target and buying a coffee cup or socks when you go and support Pride that way. So we're going to get into a little bit of history. Let me share somewhere. Hang on. I had it all set up and now it's not working. Let's start this over again. Don't you hate this when we've been doing this for how long and now it's still not working? Display settings. There.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So we're going to start with a little bit of history. As you know, there has not always been Pride Month or Pride parades or anything like that. So we're going to start with some history. How many colors did the original Pride flag have? And feel free to just shout it out. Anyone?
5.
Okay, we have a 5. We have another 5. Anybody else? Okay. The original Pride flag actually had 8 stripes. Artist Gilbert Baker, who actually just died within the past few months, unfortunately, was an openly gay man and a drag queen. He designed the first rainbow flag in 1978. He later revealed he was urged to do so by Harvey Milk, one of the first openly gay elected officials in the United States. Harvey wanted him to create a symbol of pride for the gay community. The original colors were hot pink, red, orange, green, turquoise, indigo, and violet, and they represented sex, life, healing, sunlight, nature, magic, serenity, and spirit. The original flag and the sewing machine it was sewn on can be seen in the museum in Washington, D.C., and that's what that picture is. So who organized the first Pride event? Oh, you all need to get tumblers because this has been all over Tumblr this month. Any guesses?
Marcia.
Marcia was very, Marcia helped instigate the Stonewall riots. Marcia was a drag queen in New York, but Brenda Howard is actually considered the mother of Pride. She coordinated the first Liberation March, the original name of what we call the Gay Pride today, in New York in June 1970, 1 year after the Stonewall riots. So, pop culture. Which gay comedian's character came out both in real life and in her sitcom in the 90s?
Ellen.
Anyone else? That's kind of a gimme for those of us of a certain age. She came out publicly as gay in an April 97 issue of Time, and her character on her sitcom Ellen did the same thing 2 weeks later. It was her highest rated episode, but right-wing groups criticized the episodes and advertisers backed out. The show was canceled a year later. The fixation on her sexuality flared up again in 2012 when the conservative organization 1 Million Moms protested JCPenney's choice to hire her as a spokesman. And there you go. And I never noticed during this time how much she looks like Princess Diana there. She really does. What TV show has the largest transgender cast?
Pose.
Oh, isn't it?
Pose. Pose is an American drama television series about New York City's drag ball culture scene. It's an LGBTQ subculture in the African and American communities, and takes place throughout the 1980s and 1990s. And it just recently wrapped up, I think. I have not watched it. I don't watch TV. So now we're going to get into some terminology. This is hard for a lot of people. So if you don't know all the words, I'm no judgment here. Intersectionality is a common theme in modern LGBT discourse. What does it mean? And this is a very broad definition. This isn't, it doesn't necessarily encompass everything with intentionality.
The middle bullet.
That's right. Intersectionality is the concept that all oppression is linked. More explicitly, Oxford Dictionary defines it as the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, regarded as creating overlapping and independent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. That's a huge definition that isn't very clear, but I think this picture really helps. And it shows that we are made up of more than just one thing. I am not just a white woman. I am all these other things. And when we design programs, even at work, that we need to take into consideration intersectionality. For example, if we are designing a talk for X History Month, that we pick people who are not just X. Intersectionality, if we pay attention to that, means that we don't partake in tokenism. So, yes, Megan, diversity is a measure of what makes us unique. Intersectionality is the acknowledgement of diversity. So, how many Gen Z adults identify as LGBTQ?
One in six, maybe?
Correct. 1 in 6 Gen Z adults. Gen Z is colloquially known as Zoomers. It's the demographic cohort succeeding millennials and preceding Generation Alpha, which I'd never heard of until I wrote this thing up. Researchers in popular media use the mid to late 1900s as starting birth years and the 2010s as ending birth years. So the earliest Gen Z members are starting to enter the workforce. And as our departments grow and change and we get more Gen Z coworkers, this is something that we need to take into consideration when we talk about intersectionality, that a lot more of these young adults consider themselves part of the LGBTQ community. What do I got next? What's next? All right, on to the Juneteenth questions. What is Juneteenth? Is it the anniversary of the day the American Civil War ended? Is it the anniversary of the day the Emancipation Proclamation was read to slaves in Texas? Or was it the day that President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation?
Two.
Yeah, the second one, actually.
Yep, I've got a bunch of second ones in chat too. That is correct. So June 19th, 1865 was the date that the group of slaves in Texas found out that they had been emancipated months before by the Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Lincoln. And one more. What is the meaning of the Juneteenth flag? And I'll show you a picture of the Juneteenth flag after we look at these. Is the Star of Texas bursting with new freedom? Just kind of looks cool, so we like it. Or red for hardiness and valor, blue for vigilance, perseverance, and justice, and white for purity and innocence. Colleen's going, 2, it just looks cool. 3, 3,
3.
I'm gonna say 3.
wrong.
Wow, Texas.
It was designed in Texas. It was designed because of the Juneteenth announcement in Texas. It was designed in 1997 by activist Boston Ben. His name was Ben Haith. He displayed the first version of the Juneteenth flag in June 97. And it was described as a banner adorned with sunbursts and flaming candles, which I think has changed. The present design was completed and copyrighted in 2000. For those of you that answered number 3, that's the description of the American flag. That's why our American flag is red, white, and blue. So you were close. So I think that's it. Yeah. So how'd you do? Do you think you learned some things? Were you all about it?
Yes.
There's a little bit more to the history than just rainbows and flags at Target. And so with that, thank you for participating with that. And who am I turning it over to? Hang on. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. I'm going to turn it over to Kayla. She is our speaker for today. She is amazing. She was on a committee at Autumn in New Orleans. If you missed that, then you missed a great committee. Karen was our moderator. And so Kayla, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you will probably do it better than I do. And everyone, welcome Kayla.
Thank you. I will admit I was stumped on some of those questions, but I'm a lover of the show Pose, so love to see that in there as well. My name is Kayla Meissner. My pronouns are she, her. I'm currently a licensing and new ventures manager for Kentucky Commercialization Ventures. My other 2 colleagues are on the call, so I got to shout out Megan and Caroline as well. And when Autumn had reached out, they asked people, what are you doing to help support people in your queer community? And we would love to highlight that. And so I had to take it, upon myself to brag on one of my favorite Kentucky-based companies, Queer Kentucky, which I am on the board for and currently the secretary for. So today I'm going to give you all some high-level insights about Queer Kentucky, what we do, share the link, and it is my intention to see Queer Kentucky one day at an Autumn annual meeting, giving a workshop or something. I think it would be a great synergy of two companies. But so Queer Kentucky is a diverse LGBTQ plus nonprofit based specifically in Louisville, Kentucky. And the 2 primary things we do are inclusion workshop trainings and queer storytelling. And we think both are important because they enhance queer culture and really allow people to have conversations and celebrate the visibility of LGBTQ plus lives. For trans inclusivity, Queer Kentucky has a few key things that they think are important for all offices to respect and to implement. And so I thought I would share a few quick things that you could either take back with you or, brag on your office quickly if you all already implement those things. First being pronouns. I see about half the room split right now with pronouns on and off your screens. And just to say, how important pronouns are. They might seem intuitive to people who, again, are cis people. That means that the sexual identity that you align with is what you were assigned at birth. And so for most cis people, pronouns are seen as why would we do this? But for queer people, it's almost an alliance to say that you see us and that you are willing to have this conversation if someone's pronouns do not align as you would think that they do. So that's a really easy thing that I encourage all offices to do. Put pronouns on your website, put them in their email signatures. Again, it starts a conversation and there's a little tick in your ally cap if you haven't done that. Additionally, one of the things to do is to really decrease stigmatization. And that we put into a bunch of categories. I know that a lot of offices are virtual now, but in the in-person days, Queer Kentucky put a list of safe practices. a few of those being not having strict dress codes. Dress codes can sometimes, again, start uncomfortable conversations with not great intentions. And so the thought is, loosening dress codes and making sure that if it is truly business casual, that everyone gets to interpret business casual as they see fit. Another is bathrooms. Bathrooms are a huge safe space, but also can be a huge trigger for people, especially trans people in the workplace. And so we recommend at Queer Kentucky not only to have designated bathrooms, handicap bathrooms, but also a genderless bathroom where anyone could go in and feel safe as well. Trans workers, there's a statistic that we found through the Center for American Progress that came out in 2020 that said 53% of trans people often feel discriminated when they are trying to apply/go through the hiring process of a job. And so it's my intention with the Autumn DE&I committee, I'm a member on that committee, to work towards, again, surveys, statistics, things that people can put together and offices can use, such as the toolkit, that will make people, again, before they even, walk in the door, so to speak, see that this is something that you value. Another thing, which is, an easy thing, and some of you may do it, is a mission statement towards DE&I. Now, DE&I does not just include LGBTQ+, but again, a DE&I statement is one of the first things that queer people look for on company websites to see if this is an inclusive space, to see if it is a safe space. And so that statement can often be the catalyst for if someone even wants to welcome a discussion with your office or with your entity. So those are a few things. Again, the queer inclusive workshops, I think, is a great tool for you to use virtually or in person to start really sensitive but meaningful conversations about how your office can actually implement things. And then the other bucket of Queer Kentucky is storytelling. We hire queer journalists, writers. You don't have to be a professional writer. This could just be something that you want to do in your free time. But currently, all of our writers are based in Kentucky and are queer and trans writers. And the goal, again, simply like this water cooler, is to celebrate, uplift people, and allow people, even if you're not in the queer community, to see yourself in queer stories. We believe that inclusivity enhances well-being of humans, of employees and businesses. And I have a few statistics as well about why being inclusive is good for business. That is kind of my 30-second spiel on Queer Kentucky. I'm going to put a link in the chat for how to donate, how to learn more. Again, I'm a board member, a proud activist in this space. And so I'd be happy to welcome any conversation about Queer Kentucky or the work that we're doing in Kentucky to lift up queer voices. So with that, thanks for sharing the spotlight, and I'll pass it over to the Autumn team.
Okay, great. So what I'd like to do now, and first of all, thank you so much, Kayla, for sharing with us. I'd like to open this up for conversation. If you have any thoughts about the quizzes that Eileen did with us, if you have any questions for Kayla, if you're thinking about things that you might be able to do within your own organization or institution and are interested in, like Kayla, sharing more about how you might get started, I would really like to have people chime in and share. So if anyone wants to just go off mute and ask a question or make a statement, welcome. And that's what a water cooler is all about.
I'll jump in. A while back, I worked at the University of Kansas, which I just want to show off this cool shirt they made. Look at that. I've got my gay hawk on and my cat is helping, but that's cool. And I supervised a bunch of students in the recycling department. And we tried very hard to educate the student body on recycling and environmental issues and things like that. But it's a wicked problem. And I don't know if you all know that terminology. A wicked problem is basically a problem made up of problems. And one of the things that we ran into was that saving the world was a huge wicked problem. So we broke it down into what's one thing? What is one thing a college student can do? And what we came up with was refuse single-use plastics. So the recycling department purchased reusable water bottles and we gave them out all over campus. That was our one thing. You can't save the world and do everything, but what's the one thing? And I think that's something that as university, most of us work for universities and we have our tech transfer offices. And as we try to move into a more diverse mindset, we can't solve all of the problems all of the time. For example, my department just moved into a great new building. It is beautiful and marvelous, and there are no, all the bathrooms are men and women. It's like, guys, come on. There's no breastfeeding room. And we have a new mother. And so, you know, it's little things that turn into big things that we can't help. But what are the things we can? The putting our pronouns in our names. It was great at Autumn to see that they had the labels that you put on your name tag. These are my pronouns. That is an easy thing you can do to make it more inclusive, to make it more, I don't know the word I'm looking for, common. So that when someone does come in and say, I am so-and-so and my pronouns are she, her, and that person doesn't obviously pass as someone you would normally think of as being she, her, it doesn't make you go, what? No, you just, okay, I accept that and move on. That's a good one thing. As far as our departments, having a diversity statement, find the diversity and equity department where you work and work with them on getting a diversity statement on your website that your employees all understand and agree with. Those are some easy steps to start solving these wicked problems. So you don't have to feel like you're tackling the entire thing all at once. That's what I got.
So does anyone else want to share?
Yeah, Karen, you mind if I jump in?
Sure.
And I want to share this story on behalf of one of our colleagues that I met when I was at a Praxis oral meeting this past month. And this colleague came up to me after the panel session and said, this is the first time I felt accepted. The fact that you mentioned that you think we should support the LGBTQIA+ community meant I felt like I really belong here. And they said that they've been using their pronouns in the office in isolation. They've said that they've even had to change the way they define themselves. And so when we talk about these kind of things, it's not necessarily just on you to have to be distinct or unique and be willing to speak out about it. But as an ally, being able to share these kind of stories helps to normalize that conversation and helps people to feel like they really do belong. And I was so excited to be able to connect him to so many of our colleagues here in Autumn who are out members of this community and who are willing and excited to share their stories. Because we do have opportunities in our community and the advanced work we've done with EDI to create these connections, not just here, but around the world.
Great, thank you so much, Megan. So I would love for a few more people to chime in.
I'm happy to chime in. Hi, I'm Judy Bridges out of the University of Washington within CoMotion, which is basically our branded tech transfer office here. I'm new to tech transfer. I've only been in the position for about 6 months. I came from a large French conglomerate that maybe some of you know called Saint-Gobain. It's a French conglomerate that's been around for 365 years. And I was part of the group that formed the first LGBTQIA plus employee resource group there. And we called it Live Open. And there are a couple of things. I realize these are, to use the term, wicked problems, but it also requires a particular amount of leadership. And so I'm kind of curious on a couple of areas. First of all is that in terms of Autumn, is there a leadership group within the LGBTQ community that kind of organizes the cats, if you will? We called it a board. We had a charter. We were very formal about it. We were very structured in what we did, and we were purposeful in our choices. One of the things that we did, it's such a large company across the world, is we started to reach out and created a network and contacts in different areas. And basically, it was almost like assessing the marketplace within the company. What were the gaps? What were the problems? Where are some of the themes that show up? From there, we were able to come up with essentially some goals. And one of the things, and I'm sure this is one that strikes here, is in terms of allyship. So many people within that organization at all different levels had no idea how to be an ally. Our CEO in North America was terrified of me for the simple fact that he was afraid he would say something horrible. Now, I'm like 15 levels below him within that hierarchy for where I was, but he just didn't know how to do it. And so it was kind of a conversation. And we actually created a toolkit and training to go to each plant, each group, and we had basically trainers and train the trainers. We then reached out with some of the other employee resource groups as well, one of which was essentially, for using the term, more focused on BIPOC issues within Saint-Gobain. And we started to see some of the themes and crossover. And so we created relationships and a certain amount of, I would say, cooperation between the groups to help with that theme of intersectionality. I think this could be a grand opportunity in Autumn as well, is to try to think about this, and then you could provide some resources so that each tech transfer office then has a set of tools of which to educate their own people and have those open conversations. It's not easy to be an ally. I can guarantee you of that. A lot of people were terrified. You would not believe the conversations that we had with folks. It was absolutely fascinating. People were worried. They didn't want to step on someone's toes. They didn't want to make a mistake, or they had no idea that their words had impact. And this is from folks that could be in R&D, they could be in the C-suite, or they could be on the production floor. Actually, the themes were all identical, regardless of where they were. And I think there's a grand opportunity here. I mean, there's a lot of super smart, capable people. We're all knowledge workers here. So let's put our knowledge and maybe 2 hours of our time a month to thinking about this and kind of coordinating all this. Treat it like you're forming a business, and our business is education or something along those lines. Sorry, as Jennifer will attest to, I have a tendency to spin everything. So, I think it's, it's interesting. Jennifer told me this is the first time that there's been a recognition within Autumn of LGBTQ issues. That's a little surprising given the kind of work that we do here, but that's okay. Just like at Saint-Gobain, I was the first person ever to openly transition there, and they had no idea what to do with me. You have no idea how hard it is to write policy for a large, huge bureaucratic company and then educate everybody about what it is and what it isn't. I'll have to say that if I could do it within Saint-Gobain, we all could do it at our respective groups and universities, and then hopefully be able to sprinkle it out to all the various departments that we interact with on a daily basis. That's my pitch.
Judy, just as someone on staff here, thank you so much for sharing everything that you just shared. And, again, it's a question that I have often of, what is the way that we could be good allies? And thank you for giving us ideas on thinking about that.
Well, believe it or not, I still stay in touch with the folks at the Live Open board, considering I brought almost all of them on. I know that they would actually be more than happy to do the training that we designed. It's a 2-hour training, but we could customize it a bit, for the needs that we have here and for the folks that we have. But they would be happy to go through it. That was when I left, we were still talking about how to do outreach. Most of them are out of Philadelphia, out of their Malvern headquarters. And it's not a bad network if you're looking for, how to commercialize innovations. It's a huge company with their tentacles in everything. That's all I'll say on that regard. So maybe we should talk more offline on this. I would love to try to help. Every person that I've met in tech transfer offices has been super sharp. So I think it's just like, let's take that acumen and apply it to this and dice that wicked problem up into small little bits and make that wicked problem so we don't call it a wicked problem anymore.
Judy, I love that idea. I think that's I would love to just personally even follow up with you on how best to connect that in and then make this a discussion topic for our board and at the Autumn leadership. I think, we need more sort of direct connectivity for unique ideas to get intentional about these practices. Kayla mentioned Queer Kentucky here in Kentucky, and just here in our community, it's one way that we can sort of learn, create connectivity, create partnered approaches, just specifically to the entrepreneurship community here. But I would love to dig more into to that group and see how we can how we can learn. Maybe if we can connect offline after this, that'd be great.
When the mute go once again. I put my email address in the chat. So just reach out to me at the UW.
Super. Judy, thank you so much for sharing. That was really wonderful to hear. And I'm looking forward to you following up with Ian. And I wrote down your email address. I'd love to follow up with you as well. We have time for more conversations. So who else wants to share ideas, thoughts? That's what a water cooler is.
Well, you all know me, and you know how I like to volunteer if I don't hear anything. So I'm going to pick on a couple people here. Tori, can you talk a little bit about what's going on in industry? How are you all leading with action and not just changing the colors of your logo for a month?
No, and we certainly do not. As Novo Nordisk, we actually had a very nice session with our CEO speaking about how it's actually deep within our roots. The E part of DEI, right, is equality. Equality has always been very important to in Danish culture and has perpetuated, and we've certainly been working on the diversity and the inclusion issue. And well before Pride Month, our CEO made a point to use a very nice photograph of one of our employees who was part of a same-sex couple and was also the beneficiary of the first time we implemented a policy where we called it parental leave instead of maternity or paternity. And so that regardless of your gender, orientation, etc., that if you choose that if you have a child either by birth or by adoption, everyone had the same amount of leave. And as you can imagine, in Europe, it's quite generous, right? At least it's usually at least a year, and often the parents can take turns. So then you end up having a parent full-time devoted to the child for 2 years, and perhaps even more. And it's guaranteed paid. Your position does not dissolve. Everyone just fills in and pitches back in together, and it's never an issue, right? I know it's a little bit different here. I'm a mother of two myself, and I was very fortunate to be in a situation where that I work from home. So I know that I've been very grateful for that. So that's one aspect where we've just been very public about, and very matter of fact. It's like, these are, this is an employee with his husband by the canal in Denmark, and it's on the cover of the Animal Report. I think it's actually one of the cover photos on our website. I do believe we have a statement. I have to be honest, I've not looked at it just because I've seen how face forward we are on this. It's completely normal. But yeah, so I mean, those are two aspects where I think we've just been really upfront. If you looked at our official LinkedIn page, you'll see a couple of references to that. And I will say that personally, as an employee of the company, I've gone to our sites in the US, right? Seattle and Indianapolis. And it's very diverse. I met people and worked with people who said, yes, my husband and I, or et cetera, right? And again, no one, it's not a big deal. It is who they are 100%, and how they are in the workplace and how they are at home. And the fact is they are smart and they're decent and a pleasure to work with and productive. And that is all that matters to our company. On the diversity issue, our CEO has said that he endeavors to have 50% of our leadership be represented by women. He recognizes that we've had a very long history of it being very heavily male. And I think that it's taking time, but it's happening. I will certainly say that we have people at the senior VP and VP level that are women. The manager who hired me, who was at the VP level, was a woman, and then she transitioned into a corporate VP. So there is a drive there. I have argued a little bit the racial diversity, but again, it's a work in progress, but they recognize there's work to be done.
Thank you so much. And so I'm actually going to I'm going to pull a Megan and call on someone unexpectedly. Jonathan Barbie is on with us, and he is one of the members of our EDI committee. And so I think it would be helpful as well to have someone else from the committee talk a little bit about the work that we're doing. So Jonathan, could you take just a minute or two? Maybe he walked away.
He's there. He's just on mute.
Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Good to see you, and it's great to be here for this celebration. And Karen, what were you thinking about? Do you think we should talk about some of the advocacy objectives that we've been discussing?
Yeah, and just like, so, you're fairly new to the committee, and you and I talked about ways for us to identify things that were meaningful to the committee members. So just sharing your experience with that, I think would be interesting for people to hear, so they get a little bit better perspective on the kinds of things we're doing.
Right. Yeah. So it's been a really, really positive and enriching experience to be on the EDI committee. And I think that what's really been great to see is that even though we're the committee ourselves, we're able to spread the message throughout the rest of autumn and sort of really see that message be embraced and really expand throughout the organization. So it's been really great to see that happening. And I think this event is an example of that. And then the other thing too is, as we're putting our heads together, we're starting to put together a lot of really concrete goals and work product that we'll be sharing with the rest of the organization as well. So as I was mentioning earlier, Karen and I have been working on some of our advocacy objectives. And I think one thing that this event reminds me of is that, our advocacy goals should definitely take into consideration the LGBTQ community and those concerns as well. And then on that note as well, as a lawyer, I've been especially concerned about the decision that just came down from the Supreme Court today. And even though that may seem sort of far afield from what we're doing here at Autumn, I think it's something that we definitely need to be aware of and also think about the implications of how that will impact society at large, but also impact our organization. And even if it doesn't have a substantive impact our organization, we should still be very conscientious about how that makes our members feel, both within the organization and you know, at individual tech transfer offices and things like that.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I think Ian wanted to chime in because this will be the last question before we turn over to Misty and Eileen. We would like to share information with you guys about the D&I SIG. So Ian, take it away.
Thanks, Karen. You know, as I give more thought to how to effectuate impact here with intentionality, one of the sort of the cross connections and one of the really important new developments within Autumn is this social innovation push and the new SIG around social innovation. And as if you think about all the amazing research that is happening across many of our campuses here that are focused on social impact and indicators, creation of, you know, greater sense of belonging and creation of sort of trust and hope in the community. There's lots of great research on that. Social innovation is really about ensuring that those reports and publications and assessments and studies turn into actual actionable impact in the communities as well through social enterprise and otherwise. So just think about that connectivity. I know Serenity is on here, Serenity, right, who's leading that SIG. And I think she's in a sort of a noisy environment right now, so she can't speak up, but reach out to Serenity, because to be honest, the things we're talking about here, there's a bridge here between these things and what social innovation is really about, that we can push through this movement within Autumn and that new SIG.
And speaking of SIGs, I want to now wrap up with Misty Farrell and Eileen Dingus, who are the co-chairs of the D&I SIG. We definitely want to have the conversation today to be just the beginning. And the D&I SIG provides a really great platform for us to continue having conversations. And so Misty and Eileen, I'm not sure who wants to go first, but I'm going to leave it up to the two of you.
Thank you, Karen. I'll just say a few words and then hand it over to Eileen. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Really just impactful. Everything that's been said here today, very exciting. This is our first Autumn, Pride event, really exciting. And thank you for being allies through your actions and speaking up and your presence here. So this, the Stonewall riots in New York City of 1969 accelerated the LGBTQ rights movement. And unfortunately today we have seen the murder of George Floyd, one of the individuals who died as a result of deep-rooted, unaddressed systematic failures, shone a light on D&I across the country, along with Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, and countless others. We are proud to lead Autumn's D&I SIG. I'd like to wish everyone, again, a happy Pride Month. I'd like to thank Autumn leadership, especially Megan and our initial chair, Cedric, for their support in getting the SIG launched. We've been able to hold many thought-provoking conversations. Some of you may have seen our post on the e-group. Our conversations have been about change, sharing resources, just as Judy had mentioned, this need for education. That's very important, and this is very helpful to our TLO offices, and then also our communities at large, our PIs. These conversations are very important, and having an education piece is also part of that. And just a quick comment about some of the things that we've done at BU, my institution where I work. So we were inspired by Nicole Mercier's Equalize conference, and also work done by several of our colleagues on the call here and others I've met at Autumn conferences. And we began our efforts modestly just by collecting information and then eventually building these online resources. We've scheduled talks and also ways to provide exposure to the TLO for everyone, and then especially those from underrepresented backgrounds. And again, those conversations wouldn't have happened without the Autumn conference, without someone saying, hey, have you spoken with my other colleague here. So again, sharing this information and connections with others is very important. So we're now, with respect to this month and some of the celebrations that we're doing, we're speaking with organizations like Out in Tech about collaborations. And we've also highlighted faculty and administration who have come out. And I am just really encouraged to see those types of efforts being done at the institutional level, whereas, you know, as many have seen, that hasn't happened before. And so let's continue that work. If you can share a story or anecdote with someone else, just think of what type of impact you can make for an individual. And what else? So again, please take a look at our e-group, posts and comments and discussions. Please feel free to participate. And I'll just quickly give it over to Eileen for some comments and her perspective.
Thank you so much, Misty. I'm going to share again. So this is a really easy way for you to participate in the Diversity and Inclusion SIG. If you go to the Autumn e-groups and you can join. And we look forward to having people. Oh, I'm in the wrong place now. We have about 90 people in the group right now. And as you can see, we have some active discussions going on. Just the most recent was an hour ago. We have talked about 2022, calendar year 2022, being the year of action. So during our monthly meetings, we've been talking about what we can do, looking at best practices from other organizations, videos from subject matter experts, and then group discussions within the meetings we're having. And you can see there's shared files, there's requests for information, collaboration and everything. And we really look forward to having as many of you join that as possible. And like I said, we have a monthly meeting where we get together like this and talk face to face, but we are always talking and sharing ideas in the SIG on the Autumn website. So I look forward to seeing you there. And with that, Karen, I'm going to turn it back to you and to Colleen.
Perfect. And I'm going to turn it over to Colleen. But first, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone for participating today with us in this conversation. And Colleen?
Sure. What a pleasure. I'm going to thank you all for being here. And I also want to give Steve a moment to say anything that he would like to say before we sign off.
Great, thank you. And again, just want to echo, this has been really eye-opening, fascinating. I learned a lot on trivia, and more importantly, I think it's just a great opportunity for us all to get together. The strength of Autumn has and always will be our diversity of perspective, experiences, and that's what makes Autumn great. And so I'm just so thankful for each of you being willing to provide your perspectives and help us build an even more inclusive environment at Autumn. It's absolutely critical for us. So thank you all for being here. Happy Friday, and looking forward to continuing this discussion.
Great. Thank you all. Any last words for the order? I hope everyone has a great weekend and that you know, here in Chicago,